Welcome back to the Friday Night Golf Podcast. I am your host, Andy Johnson. Today, I am excited to be joined by Ina Kim-Schaad, who is the now reigning. She won the U.S. Women's Mid-Am. It was her second U.S. Women's Mid-Am win. And on top of that, she is also a mental coach for golf. She is a coach at Fearless Golf. So we kind of dive into playing your best golf, as well as her win at the Women's Mid-Am. So before we get to Ina, let's talk about our partner, Best Day. I love Best Day. Best Day Brewing is a non-alcoholic beer. I think it's the best non-alcoholic beer on the market. I've tried out a bunch of them. They are an awesome product. So it was created by Tate Hufford and launched a little over than 3 years ago. In the simplest terms, Tate leads a very active and social lifestyle, and he loves a good beer. As he got older and had more responsibility, career, marriage, kids, those mornings where he had to get up and try, and after a couple IPAs suddenly became a little bit more challenging. So it took some time, but he nailed a couple recipes after testing multiple batches on his friends and took it to market. Now, Best Day is in almost 40 states and one of the fastest growing NA beer brands in the country. I am a huge fan of the Electro Lime, also the Kolsch. Those are two of my favorites, but any type of beer you like, they have a replacement of that. One of the things, my favorite things to do is kind of split, Best Day regular beer, Best Day regular beer, never gets off the rails, feel really good in the morning. If you want to check this out, go to bestdaybrewing.com. That's bestdaybrewing.com and use the code FriedEgg20 and you'll get 20% off your first order. That's bestdaybrewing.com, FriedEgg20. Big thanks to them for partnering with us and supporting the pod. All right, Ina, fresh off the U.S. Women's Mid-Am victory, you just got on a plane and headed to Ireland. I got to ask, what was the highlight of the Ireland trip?
Oh, I don't know if I could say a single thing that was like the highlight. I mean, listen, winning's nice, but genuinely, the Irish are so lovely. Win or lose, like, we just love the camaraderie and meeting the players over there and getting to play real links golf and, all the team bonding that happens throughout the week. So just a lot of really big highlights the last 2 weeks, I have to say. A lot of really positive moments.
Before we get into the your win at the Mid-Am, I wanted to talk a little bit about your background. You were a great junior player, college player. And then you took a break. You went to Northwestern. You took a break from the game and just entered the workforce, kind of similar to how most people's college experience goes. You finish college and then you go into the workforce, but you kind of took a break from the game of golf. Why did you? What was the thinking behind that?
I wouldn't say it was like a really scripted thing where I wasn't going to play golf and I was just going to focus on my career or anything like that. It was one of those natural things that happened as I entered the workforce, priorities shifted, and I cared a lot more about work and traveling and doing things that I was never had the free time to do, like skiing and partying till 3 a.m. and, jumping on a plane and going somewhere for a day and a half and just literally just the little luxuries in life that you don't get really when you have a full-time playing career. So yeah, it was more like I got sidelined for 11 years. and then I was lucky enough to meet my now husband, who is quite obsessed with golf, and he's the one who got me back into it.
It's funny. I think about when in my life I was most disconnected from the game, and it is like the early 20s.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, like you enter the workforce and you are literally just the bottom of the totem pole.
Totally.
B, you have more ambitions socially than any other period in your life, where you have more things that you want to do and you have no attachments to it. And I imagine for you playing competitively through college, it was probably somewhat of a like, this is nice not to have this, I don't want to use the wrong term, but golf can be a little bit of a ball and chain.
Yeah. I think there's definitely some truth to that. I think that feeling of like from 5 p.m. on Friday till, Sunday night at 9 p.m., like literally having no obligation whatsoever is such a novelty to anybody who's played really high level, anything, right? Whether it's music or sports or whatever. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like the goldfish thing where like you latch onto the next shiny thing. You're like, oh, that's shiny and pretty. Let me try that. And let me try this. And I think it's a healthy thing for people to just try on different things and see what suits them and figure who they are out a little bit more, post college.
As you've had time to reflect, obviously you've been playing again for a while now. You've won 2 mid-ams in the time span, but what did the long break do you feel like teach you about the game?
Oh, I don't know how much time we have on the podcast, but
we've got plenty of time. That's the beauty of the pod. It's all depends on how much time you have.
So I would say, I kind of view like the 11-year hiatus and coming back to golf. It's like kind of like, when you marry somebody and you get divorced really early and then like you take some time off and then you actually marry that same person again and you go in eyes wide open. It was kind of like that. Like I went back to golf and I decided to remarry this thing, but I wanted it to be on much healthier terms as the person I was currently, as opposed to, like my adolescent self. And I think that, one of the biggest things I realized through that journey is that, human beings were like giant bundles of habits. Like we're totally just creatures of habit, from everything from like brushing our teeth to, tying our shoelaces and things like that. And, it occurred to me that a lot of these habits that I had, these knee-jerk reactions, which, don't feel like reactions, but they really are, on the golf course, were just me when I was 5, 6, 7 years old, falling into certain, mental cycles or thought habits or even reactionary habits. And rewiring a lot of that as an adult was really interesting.
Golf's such a weird game, and your ties to it are like, you're, especially on a competitive level, your emotions are so intertwined into the sport. It's funny. I think about my game sometimes now. I have a 5-year-old, and my disposition on the golf course pre and post 5-year-old is just extraordinarily different. Like something that I find now is like, I mean, little things just don't bother me, because if you like hang out with a 5-year-old and are parenting a 5-year-old, there are just little things that bother you all the time that they're doing that you have to learn to just not, get involved with.
For sure.
It's funny. Like I think life, it's hard though, because I imagine in a way golfers get wired to think, and there's a lot of stuff that's tied to your like upbringing in the game.
For sure.
So you've won multiple mid-ams. With that week, what do you find to be the toughest part of the competition?
I think it's really easy to fall into worrying about, who's going to win or how many up or down you are, or who's your next opponent, or what bracket you're in, or, like all the just noise that happens when you're playing competitive anything. And I think I did a really good job I literally didn't look at the bracket. I didn't pay attention to who was next, who I was going to play. I literally was like, okay, this match I'm playing this person. Great. What am I doing on this hole? And I really didn't get bogged down whether I was up or down or how many holes were left. I stuck to really strong strategy, really strong commitment to my shots, and just try to play the golf course and not worry about who my opponent was or what they were doing. I know it sounds really simple, but when you're in the heat of the moment, it's so hard to not listen to that little voice that wants to tell you, hey, you're only 1 up right now, or like you're 2 down right now. To not give that credence and attention and just focus back on your game is really tough.
I mean, staying in the present moment is extraordinarily hard in golf. I find that when I get out of it, it's immediately when train wrecks happen, right? Like when they just go spiral out of control. With that tournament kind of being fresh in your mind, was there a specific singular moment that you were most proud of overcoming a bad break or a whatever it may be, or being in a tough situation and really overcoming that obstacle?
There was a pretty fascinating thing that happened in the final round that I don't think this has never happened to me in my life, but I was 2 up going into the 11th hole, and I had a perfect, we were debating the yardage, and I write down everything, and so I don't forget, and I'm looking at it, and we decided it was like a perfect pitching wedge. So I pull my club, I hit it, and I'm like, Ian, I flagged it. I'm like, this is gonna be a tap in birdie. Like, it was so good. And I'm looking at the ball and I can't see it land. And somebody's like, it's way over. I mean, I'm talking 15 yards over the green. And I look at Ian, I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I feel adrenaline, but it's not that bad. And I put the club back in, and he looks down and he's like, you just hit your 9-iron, not your pitching wedge. And I'm like, what? I've never done that in my life. And talk about in the finals, right? So I'm in absolute jail. Like, there's no coming back from this mistake, because there's just like desert back there, with like all the, the sand that's not packed in. It's just like beach sand with all the potholes and all. It's a disaster. So I try best I can, lose the hole. I take a bathroom break because I'm like, I need to just get this out of my system. And then I get to the next tee and I'm still a little bit hot, to be honest. I end up snap hooking my drive back into the freaking desert on the left on the next hole. And there goes my 2-shot lead. So I get back to all square, and I'm like reeling from, basically I hit a perfect shot, what I thought was a perfect shot, and I just grabbed the wrong club, which should never happen. And I've never done in my life. So obviously something was going on there, right, mentally. But I don't know if I was rushing or what. And I really, really, really had to like buckle down after that. I'm like, take so many breaths and just collect myself and say, listen, like, you've given up 2 holes, it's fine, but like, you really got to focus and like let go of it, because whatever residual anger you have right now, it's just not going to help you. And we got to focus back on just playing again. You're playing so great. Like, keep doing what you're doing. It doesn't matter. And literally, I just like, mentally did this, dust in my hands, and I walked to the next tee and really, really stabilized from there. And I didn't look back. And yeah, I mean, I was really proud of myself for that.
We're now blending. You also do work as a mental coach for golf. At Fearless Golf. I think like what you hit, like, it resonates so much, and it's probably resonates so much with so many people. I feel like there are so many times in golf where you hit shots and you feel like you've played a hole so well, but you walk away disappointed. Whether it's, you 3-putt from 15 feet and maybe, you catch a lip and it spins a little bit further, or you hit what you feel like in your case was a great shot, and you have a mental mistake, or you get a bad break. And so often you go to that next tee, and then, as you said, sure enough, a snap hook, even though you took a break to try to reset.
Totally.
What are the best things? Because like, I feel like the snap hook like almost always happens after that situation for me. What are the best ways to overcome those? I would call them maybe a disappointment. Would you say that's probably the right way to phrase it?
I think that's fair. Yeah. I mean, there's multiple layers, but the easiest, most tangible things are, taking really deep breaths to just calm your adrenaline and everything else that's going on, your autonomic nervous system down, because definitely everything tends to get faster. Like, it's very rare that somebody goes through a hiccup like that and then they're all of a sudden like calmer and more walking slower or anything like that. If any, they tend to rush, right? Everything kind of speeds up. And so just paying attention to your rhythm and tempo, I think, is really important, and using breath work. And then, this sounds strange, but there's this phenomenon that happens that Dr. Gio really discovered, that when you get nervous or anxious or you're overstressed, your hands, all the blood in your hands actually leaves. And so all the blood that you see in my hands, where it turns white when I press, leaves your extremities to go pump blood to all your vital organs and things. And so you actually lose feeling in your hands, and you end up gripping the club tighter than you intend to feel the same amount of resistance that you normally do. And so literally just understanding the relationship between the resistance you feel in your hands when you're in competition and nervous or excited, right? Interpretation of the person, and understanding how that affects your tempo and your rhythm of your swing. It's very rare that somebody's going to snap hook something from being too fluid. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. Recently, I've really started to come around on like the idea of like all of your pre-shot routine and everything you do before you hit the ball is kind of preparing your body to make a movement, because that's what the golf swing is. If you can get to the place where it's like, I'm just getting ready to make a movement, because that to me, I like try and think about it. It's like, how can I make this as athletic as possible? But I didn't know that about the hands, and it makes total sense, because it's like, it gets so much harder to feel that body freedom when you are feeling some sort of nerves.
100%. Yeah. Everything tends to seize up, including like your forearms, your rotation, everything just gets shorter and tighter. And really understanding the fluidity of what you feel, or how to feel that fluidity when things get tight, is the real crux of the thing. And so continuing to put yourself under pressure, understanding the relationship between the tightness and how to get it looser and how to emulate your normal swing, even though it feels totally different. That's where the magic lies.
I was gonna ask this later in the interview, but we're here now. I think like so many people struggle when they have a big round coming up, whether they're at their club and they're trying to qualify for the club championship, or they're playing, their arch nemesis in a match, or it's coming down. Do you have any steadfast like tips on how to deal with a round that you, even if you're not trying to do, you have heaved more expectation than your normal round?
Yeah. And I think, let's start with that word expectation, right? Expectation inherently implies something in the future, right? Which again, going back to what we were talking before, there's such a pull for us in golf, and really in anything that we want to excel at, towards being in the future, right? So a lot of psychologists will call it like we're time traveling, right? We're always in the future as opposed to being present. And it takes a lot of discipline and practice, like even when you're playing with your buddies, or even when you're practicing, to not anticipate and already have your mind float to the future and the result, but to really, really be present and locked in on the target. Like that's where the practice actually, the discipline of practice really comes in. And there's this phrase in psychology, like there was a great article, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago about the mundanity of excellence, right? And genuinely, you look at all the pros, like they're not doing anything that's rocket science. They're not practicing anything that's super different than you and me, but what they do between the ears and how they think about doing it, it's literally doing and thinking the same thing every single shot, every single rep, every single time, every single day, right? So excellence is not something that is like, you snap your fingers in half, but they literally do it day in and day out to the point where it is mind numbing. It is not exciting. There's no fireworks, but that's what it looks like. It's boring.
They're like machines when it comes to that. How would a lay person start to make that? Is it all just kind of routine based? How would you go about kind of building that so that you can handle a big round more effectively?
I think there's two prongs of it. I think one is how we interpret the feelings that we feel. I think a lot of people get out there and you can either be psyched up or you can be psyched out, right? Obviously, the choice is ultimately ours, right? And it genuinely is as simple as glass half full or glass half empty. Like when you get out there, rather than being like, oh my God, this guy's really good. Like he's my nemesis. I really want to beat him. It's like, hey, like genuinely, right? Pressure is a privilege. This is an opportunity for me to put into practice all these things that I've been rehearsing for so long. And let's keep putting it to the test. This is an opportunity for me. And where we see opportunity, it's so much more promising than where we see threats, right? It's just like when you're putting, the difference for a lot of people when they're putting for birdie versus par, they tend to be a lot more aggressive when they are putting for par as opposed to birdie, right? They don't want to lose the par when they're putting for birdie already, right? They're already in the future. So I would say that's prong number one, is how we interpret our feelings of what we feel out on the golf course, and kind of reframing, as simple as it sounds, is really, really powerful, right? If you think about, Olympians who, like Winter Olympics, right? It happens once every 4 years. They genuinely don't have an opportunity to showcase what they're doing.
Talk
right?
about a crazy existence.
Totally. Talk about pressure.
Your whole barometer of success with a lot of those sports boils down to how you perform in one race every 4 years.
Totally, right. If you think about that, like golfers have it so easy. We've got it week in and week out. We've got tournaments, right, for these pros. So think about a Winter Olympics, skier or something, downhill skier, and they've got literally one opportunity to do it. You listen to any interview of any of the top athletes, and they say, "How do you feel?" Not a single one of them are like, "I'm so nervous."
Yeah.
Right. They're like, "I am so excited. This is such a privilege. I've been rehearsing." You look at Chloe Kim, and she's literally there with her headset on, with her eyes closed, like rehearsing what she's going to do out on the slopes before she goes out. She's already done the run before she even gets down to the bottom. Right. So again, like interpretation is so powerful, and we don't give it enough credit. That's number one. Number two, how do we stay, kind of in it? And like, again, I know we talked a little bit about the physical part. I think that's something that anybody can practice. But again, I think just having the awareness of when you are time traveling, it's like we spend our whole lives time traveling. And, some of it is evolutionarily helpful, like anticipating trouble and things like that. It's helpful. But when you're at your most athletic is when you're so locked in on the target. And I'll show you like a really simple example of athleticism that literally everybody has the ability of. It's like you're in your office right now. You crumpled up a piece of paper and threw it in the wastebasket in the corner, like not thinking about it. Like there's no, repercussion. There's nobody watching. There's nothing that happens. There's no like degradation of self if you miss. Like there's nothing, right? So it's very easy for you to crumple it up, not think anything, and just athletically throw something in the wastebasket. Golf is no different, but we put so much meaning around every single shot that it completely reroutes. And we're like, okay, at this point, I got to like snap my wrist 45 degrees and then my two fingers on top. Like maybe I should let go then. And then what about my pinky? What does my pinky do? Like, and then you totally freak out and you over instruct and your body literally can't do it because there's so much stuff going on. And, that's basically what happens. People out there is like, it's such a crutch mentally to think that over instructing is going to help. And it actually is the biggest thing that people do that is hindering their natural ability.
It's funny. The second point, I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I think it's completely changed the way I approach putting. And I decided one day, I was like, listen, if you told me to throw a ball to somebody 30 feet or 30 yards away that's running,
Mm-hmm.
I probably could hit them in stride,
Mm-hmm.
And I think about putting, and it's like, I've hit so many, and I think this works for people that played golf for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
I've hit so many putts in my life, so many that I believe that my eyes, if I look at something, I'm going to subconsciously know how hard to hit the putt. The analogy I always tell people is like Steph Curry doesn't dribble across half court and is like, I'm 27 feet away from the hoop. This is how hard I'm going to shoot the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've stopped thinking about speed altogether, where I just like walk around and I allow my subconscious to handle the speed component. And I'm just like looking, I'm reading the putt for break. And then I just hit the putt. But removing the idea of like, I need to hit this putt hard, or this putt's uphill, it's going to be slow, has dramatically improved my speed control, which was always like somewhat of an issue with my putting. It was like a little inconsistent. And I'd think about like, oh, this is going to be really fast. I need to hit this soft. And
Yeah.
instead I just allow my body to react, and it feels a lot more athletic to me.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's such a cool thing that you've been able to do on your own. And if more people could, like for me, I would phrase it as like you actually let go, right? And it's kind of scary to let go, but I ask so many of my players to do that. It's like different versions of that, but letting go is the hardest thing because we like that feeling of control. Just like, you get in a New York City elevator and like we all press the close button. They don't actually work. Right. But it gives us a false sense of control. And so it makes us feel better, even though it's literally doing nothing. And it's the same thing in golf. Like there's so many little ticks that we have that are the equivalent of pressing that close button on the elevator that make us feel better, but are actually hindering our natural ability.
In the prior point that you brought up, I think is an interesting one. I see this a lot with alternate shot, where people totally get psyched out by alternate shot.
I mean, there's a reason it's called divorceums, right?
Yeah, and it's totally like you just spoke about control. You don't have control when somebody else hits the other shot, and I think there's like also this expectation and pressure that's placed on people where they're like worried about letting the other person down. That heightens.
100%. Mm-hmm.
But something that I've seen is like if you take the approach of when your partner puts you in a bad spot, or if your mantra is like, hey, I have the opportunity now to do something great after a poor shot. And I've never been able to translate this to my own game because I just end up saying, God, you suck. Like, why'd you hit it over there?
That's just a habit you built when you were 5.
Yeah. Bad self-talk. King of bad self. But if I'm playing with like a partner and I have a teammate, I notice I'm way more positive and upbeat. And I don't know what it is, but if you kind of take the mentality of this is an opportunity to do something great,
yes.
you see the other alternate shot teams like where they get in bad, and it's like they can self-destruct because of like they psych themselves out. I think that psyching out is like a huge part of golf.
Massive, yeah. There's with alt shot, there's definitely that pressure of letting your opponent down, but it's also like you literally only have this one thing that you can hit, and then you can't go for like 2 turns. And so there's like this added component that's pretty nerve-wracking. But I mean, I think that people have this strange thing where it's totally okay to self-abuse. And I mean, genuinely, the psychological equivalent of our negative self-talk is like, if I stood behind you every single shot and every single bad shot you hit, I was like, Andy, you suck at golf. You're so bad. I'm going to hit you on the back of your calves. Right? Like for real, right? Yeah. How would you feel after the 3rd or 4th bad shot? Like physically and mentally, emotionally, how would you feel?
Pretty bad. It's generally, like how I do what I do to myself on the golf course.
Right. But not only that, there's a physical, mental component of like, I'm scared that I'm going to get hit. Right.
Interesting.
And your actual subconscious feels that because that negative self-talk is pain. Right. So we're reinforcing steeriness, right? Scaredness, like all this stuff with negative self-talk. We think it's harmless, but it's actually really not harmless at all. There's a reason we start staring it. There's a reason we get scared. Like, what are you scared of? You're not going to get hit by a running back, right? Like, what is there to be scared of in golf?
Nothing. Well, and it's what I find most amazing. Like we talked a little bit about like the highest level pros. Like I always tell people about my golf game. I say, listen, I'm a snorkeler. I can go a couple under par. If I get too far down, though, the water comes in and I have to come up for air. But the PGA Tour pros are nuclear submarines. And I think like what happens with everybody outside of like the select few is when they're chasing, when they're aware that they're chasing a great round, whether it's breaking 100, breaking 90, breaking 80, breaking 70, whatever it may be. When they're chasing it, the thought comes in. And then what's weird about golf is that people play scared instead of continue to just do what they're doing.
Yeah. Or 100. I mean, it happens all the time to everyone. It's human nature. And it goes back to like, chapter 1 of our conversation, which is time travel, right? When you start getting like 2, 3, 4 under and you're like, oh my God, I'm having a really good round, right? Where does your awareness go to?
The round.
Right.
And
where am I going to
ahead?
finish? What am I going to, can I screw this up? What if I don't make any more birdies? What if I make a double, but there's an OB over there? Like, what am I going to, there's all this stuff that happens. It's all in the future, right? If you think about genuinely, like, what's the best round you ever had?
Recently I just played a great round, and I hold out like 3 times early in the round. Like, it was kind of crazy. But then, of course, like, I finished with like 6 straight pars with lots of up and downs. Like, it was not easy.
You made it tough for yourself.
Extremely hard.
Okay.
Like grinding to a finish.
Yeah. And think about the carefreeness that you played with in the beginning when you were holding out versus how much time travel you probably did in the last bit.
Yeah, I was thinking about course records. I was thinking
gosh.
It was bad news. It was bad news.
Right. And you know what's funny about time travel? It's actually really exhausting. Like, really exhausting.
Yeah.
We're not meant to do it. And so, I think that as simple as it sounds, but it's really, really, really hard to do. The more you can immerse yourself in literally as just a shot in hand. Like, what is in front of you is the only thing that matters in your entire universe for 40 seconds.
So we've heard this a million times, right? Like the idea, like, what do you tell people who, like, once you start to think ahead, how do you reset and get that out of your thought process?
Yeah, it's just awareness is power, right? So being aware that you're in the future is all you need to know to like snap yourself back into the present. And the present, if you have trouble getting back to the present, there's all sorts of like neuro hacks that you can do to get back. Like, literally take a sip of water, right? You can feel the coldness of the water go into your mouth, like go down your throat, enter your stomach. Literally, that's very present. That's about as present as you can be, right? You can feel the grass underneath your feet. There's so many things you can do to like just literally bring yourself to where your feet are. And then ultimately it's kind of flipping everything so that instead of the future, you're just focused on the shot at hand, which is like, what is my strategy? What's my target? Right? And why did you choose the target that you did? And once you lock in on that, like, you're so focused on your target that all that stuff melts away, right? Our attention's super finite. We don't have enough of it to give it to 10 million places.
I feel like golf is one of the sports, as someone with ADHD, that appeals so much to me because I just have to hyper focus for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, totally.
And like, that's what you're doing. I feel like is getting ready, then to hyper focus, and then it's away, and then it's almost a superpower that you can't pay attention to anything for very long.
Bingo. It really is. To be able to dip out like that much out of your shot rather than grind on it for the whole walk to your next shot, which is exhausting, by the way. That is a superpower. It's amazing.
This is all why we love golf, is because it is just the most ridiculous game that is mental gymnastics.
It is.
How did you get into the mental coaching? How did you decide this was something that you wanted to do with your life?
I mean, I didn't really. I kind of was so lucky, right place, right time. So when I started golf again, in 2016, I was playing in a golf tournament. I was playing a singles match. And it was basically the French version of what I just played in Ireland. And I'm playing against this French girl who doesn't speak a lick of English. It was very nice. And I kept playing against her and kept throwing away every hole. Like, I would just give it to her on a platter. And I got to this one hole where I finally was like, all right, momentum. I'm going to flip this. This is going to be great. And I got to a greenside, like a par 5 greenside bunker in 2. And she was kind of like a little bit out of it, not totally out of it, but I was like, all right, you just got to get up and down, or like up and 2 pot, get your par and like get out of there and you're good. So I get in the bunker thinking this is the momentum turner. And I cold blade the thing like 40 yards over the green. Legit, almost OB. I'm like, do I need to hit another ball? Like, what's going on?
That's maybe the worst feeling in a bunker.
Worst feeling in the world.
You're starting to think about like the drop.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. And my knee-jerk reaction, right? Without any time to think, any time to rationalize, nothing, I just started bawling, crying in the bunker because I was putting so much pressure on myself and telling myself what a terrible golfer I was. Like, why was I wasting time doing this? Like, you're not worthy. All sorts of the crazy stuff that goes in our mind. And that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. So I'm sitting in the bunker, having cold bladed it, with literal tears flowing down my face, having the hiccups, like snot bubbles coming out of my nose. And like in between hiccups, I have to apologize to the USGA official and this poor French girl who has no idea what's going on. I mean, I don't even have any idea what's going on. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, guys. I need a minute. And they're like, of course. They were very nice. And everything was like a blur after that. But basically, long story short is, I got done with that round. I'm like, I don't want to play golf like this anymore. Like, why am I even playing golf? Right? I'm literally an amateur golfer. I'm playing golf for fun. This isn't fun. What am I doing? So I then, went on this multi-year journey with one of the best sports psychologists out there. His name's Dr. Gio Valiante, who started, he wrote a book called Fearless Golf, hence my handle, Fearless Golf Coach. But, he and I worked together for a few years to just discover what was going on, scratch beneath the surface, really go deep, and kind of rewire all the things that you and I talked about earlier. And through that journey, he and I became really good friends, and he's, great friends with my husband and our friends and family and all these kinds of things. And, after a few years, I was like, all right, I got to go back to reality. I'm going to go back into finance. And he's the one that kind of pulled me aside and was like, Ina, I actually have never taken on anybody, but I think you'd be really good at this. Would you be willing to learn? And it was like one of those things where like the cool kid's talking to you, you're like looking behind, you're like, is he talking to me? Like me? But no, I mean, he is so gracious, and he is the one who saw some potential in me and brought me into his business. And I owe everything to him. And it's genuinely the most rewarding job in the world because I get to help people not be miserable on the golf course. And I'm really passionate about it because of what I went through.
That's amazing. I imagine it's something that you get a lot of fulfillment from also, is like just helping people and helping them enjoy something that they love or supposedly love.
Yes. Bingo.
It's was there a moment, I imagine that, learning how to coach, was there a moment where you just really were like, this is it for me. This is way better, obviously, than the finance world?
I don't know if there's like a single moment, but there's just so many, even little victories where you're with a client and like what you were talking about with your putting, right? Like you actually let them, like have them let go. And it's so psychologically scary to let go, but for them to really do it and like have that like light bulb that goes off, for you to see that and like be there with them and be like, you can do this all the time. And it's like, everything from that to like, when my players, obviously they win or something like that. But there's so many like micro achievements that happen that don't necessarily correlate with results that we really celebrate. And I like to celebrate because, ultimately it's not just results that matter. There's so much stuff that goes into the pudding. And there's so many little victories that we have to celebrate, and I'd love to celebrate. So,
yeah, I mean, it's progress in golf, especially, is nonlinear. Also, is like
bingo.
You can feel really good golf coming for months and not have the results, and that can make it frustrating. But it's like I think like one of the things that I settled on towards the end of my competitive career, but maybe I'll try and restart the competitive career in the near future.
Yes, come out of retirement. Come on.
Yeah.
Come to the dark side.
It's been like a almost 10-year retirement now. But one of the things I realized, like, which was, it took me so long to get there, but was like, hey, like, I can't worry about score. And I think this is something that people like struggle with, is like they get these numbers in their head. And it's like, I realize, like, if I play well, I'm going to be fine. And I don't know what the number of me playing well is on a given day. Some days it could be 76. Some days it could be 68. But like the day that is 76, if you have some number in mind and you're playing really well and you're 4 over par, it means everybody else is probably playing really poorly too. And you just have to hang. It's wild, the mental aspect of the game of golf. Like, I think it gets almost more and more fascinating as you get older, is like when you relive like some of those things, and it's like, why was I thinking about this?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we definitely have more demons to fight the older we get, that's for sure.
Hey, let's take a quick break from Ina and talk about our partner, Groovit Brush. So Groovit makes the top-rated golf brushes on the market. And if you're trying to play high-level golf like Ina, having clean grooves is key. So Groovit has 2 different types of brushes. They have the original Groovit, which holds water. It sprays and scrubs your clubs. It's a little bit bigger. I'm a big fan of the Mini G. It's a smaller brush, doesn't use water. But you see a lot of tour players using it. It's got the clip. They clip it to their belt buckle when they're on the range, but it can clip to your golf club. Makes it really easy to keep your grooves clean. Clean grooves mean better golf shots, and really this is a great product to have on your bag. You can purchase these in almost all major golf stores as well as Walmart. But the best way to purchase it, I think, is at groovitbrush.com. Use the promo code FRIEDEGG for 15% off any purchase. Go to groovitbrush.com. Use the promo code FRIEDEGG for 15% off any purchase. I guess like from like your side of things, when you're playing yourself and you're playing we'll just say the US Mid-Am, how do you approach stroke play and match play differently? Or is it the same approach?
For me, it's generally the same approach. I really ultimately just try to play every hole the way it's meant to be played for my game, which is not the same as somebody else's game. So I just am going to take apart the golf course the best way I can for me, period.
So if your playing partner, like, I think this is where people get wrapped up in match play too. It's like your playing partner's doing this, or they could be making a mess of a hole, and then or they're playing great where they just keep making birdies. Are you just trying to stay even keel? Like if somebody hits one OB and you're in the middle of the fairway hitting your second shot, it's just the same approach all the time?
For me, it is. I found for myself that's the best strategy. I really try not to pay attention to what they do. I mean, obviously, if you're like one down and there's a drivable par 4 and they drive the green and they're like 10 feet, I think you probably have to review your strategy a little bit. But like outside of those really, really random, like, very, very unlikely scenarios, I'd rather just play my own game the way that, because like ultimately, if you've, done your practice rounds the way that you should, you've already figured out based on where the pins are and where the tee boxes are, how your game is going to best play that hole. And whatever that other person does, like, it's not like they shot 65 in qualifying and you shot 85. Like, you're still shooting the same scores, right? Yeah. So like you play the golf course the way you're meant to play it. And if they're a bomber and they're going to take driver on every hole, like let them, but I still am shooting what I'm shooting. So like, why does it matter?
I think people also get lost a little bit in like what's happening and the reality of like how long 18 holes is.
Yeah.
And how like people get out of like if the common one is like somebody gets out hot against you and they're 3 up through 5. Mm-hmm. And they're just playing flat out like way better than you're playing. Mm-hmm. But the reality is like 18 holes and like nobody birdies every hole, like they'd be shooting, not a lot of people go out and shoot 62. Now that could happen and you could just have something, and then there's nothing you could have done. But like there's like that knee jerk reaction of like, oh, I got to start pressing. Yeah. And that's like the hardest place to operate from in golf.
Yeah, I mean, I am a firm believer that sticking to your strategy and playing, to your strengths is ultimately going to lead to long-term success. And like, listen, like sometimes you run into a buzzsaw and like you can't, if you played a great game and you didn't overly like forcing when somebody's putting you under the gun and then short-sighting yourself or like making more like that's so much compounding. What they're doing is so much worse feeling than if you played great golf on your own game and still lost because they just played ridiculous. And so for me, like looking at those two scenarios, I would so much rather live with, okay, I stuck to my game plan. I stuck to like what is suitable for my game. I had a lot of discipline and I ran into a buzzsaw today. Like she was making 40 footers out of nowhere. Well, how am I going to compete with that? Like it was her day. Great. Hats off.
Your husband caddied now both times you've won the mid-am, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
How is it having the husband on the bag?
He's the best. He's like, yeah, I think there's a reason he was such a successful trader. He's so emotionally even keeled. Like if I'm up or down or angry or sad or like happy, overly happy, like he's just and he's so like, all right, what are we going to do on this shot? Like he just helps me refocus and like keep my bottom line like really simple. And he doesn't get affected by noise very often. And so having him there is just like this extra anchor of like stability and calm that really is helpful for me. And it's funny because he's actually caddied for a friend of ours, and so he's got 2 USGA victories and he's made 5 out of 6 PGA Tour cuts.
Oh my God.
So he's like, he's a really good caddy.
I got asked by a college coach ahead of a big tournament this summer if I knew anybody that could caddy for one of his kids who was a very good player. And it's funny, it was like a lot of pressure. Like you don't want to set up like somebody with bad caddy.
Yeah.
It's like the worst thing you could do. And it's funny. I was looking through, and my favorite caddy that I have, he's my cousin, and he played college baseball. He was a pitcher, and then he now is like a college or a high school baseball coach.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, what I liked about it is like he wasn't like the best golfer I knew,
Mm-hmm.
but a pitcher like understands like the idea of kind of golf where it's like you're trying to execute a shot and the shot changes every time because they're trying to pitch into different places and put
Mm-hmm.
in each situation's unique and like, but that even keel, what you hit on, I think is like, I mean, that's the number one trait of a caddy is you don't want, like, I've had my dad caddy for me, and like I can feel the anxiety through the bag. It's like
you don't want someone who lives and dies. Yes, you don't want somebody who lives and dies on every shot.
But that even keel is it's and like the way that a caddy talks to you is so instrumental in those situations of handling stress.
For sure, 100%.
What would be your tips if you're caddy? If you were caddying for someone, if somebody said I'm caddying for somebody in this important round, what are like 2 things that they should do?
I would say stay calm but optimistic.
Yeah.
Right. Always see the possibility. Right. And I would say, the best caddies are they anticipate. Right. I think it's very like just be ready with a wet towel. Like keep up and like be a calm presence. Don't get overly excited or overly down or anything. And it's, it's straightforward, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do that.
It is. I sometimes don't know if I would be any good or any bad, but I definitely feel more nervous when I caddy than when I 100%.
Play. Me too. I'm the same.
All right. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. I got to ask, like, you made social media waves about the amazing accomplishment of the second mid-am, but the fits were all over. I'm a little out over my skis here. I'm not really an expert on women's fashion, but tell us about the fits. How far planned out are you? Like, were you ready for the whole week? What goes into you looking? You're by all intents and purposes, a one of the greatest ever at the women's golf fashion thing.
That's
Tell
very
us
nice.
what goes into the fits.
So I definitely didn't have like a super scripted like championship outfit or anything like that. But I mean, honestly, I was at Bandon Dunes with my on a family trip the week before. I was at the Mid-Am and I knew I was going to Ireland. So I just stuffed like a month's worth of stuff into one, giant suitcase, knowing I was going to do laundry like 4 times. And, I kind of like made do with what was left that was clean on the last day. I mean, but frankly, like my aesthetic is, a little bit more classic with maybe just a little bit of, edge. But I love a classic look. Like I like menswear. I like, pleats. I like wide legs, the whole thing. And I just like to have a little bit of fun. And I don't like, there's this old saying in women's fashion, like shrink it and pink it. Literally, like they take men's stuff and they just make it smaller and they make it pink and they're like, oh, this is going to sell. And that's not what we want. And I think that, women's fashion is having a little bit more of an awareness because it's such a bigger part of the game now. Women's golf is growing so much, which is amazing. So I hope that brands take this now into account and realize that it's not just pink it and shrink it, and people want to show some personality and, like be feminine, but also like different, right? We don't all want to look the same cookie cutter way that everybody else, all the other golfers look like.
I do, I'm not an expert, but I do feel that the fashion element of women's golf is kind of almost a hurdle to participation. Like my wife sometimes is like, I don't know if I want to wear this,
Yep, it sucks.
Yeah. How can people find you if they're interested in the mental coaching and that side of what you do?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram, Fearless Golf Coach, or at Fearless Golf Coach, and send me a DM or look at some of my content there. I'm not great at posting. I kind of tend to just work with word of mouth, but yeah, if they like what I'm talking about and feel it, then please reach out. It's great.
Awesome. Thanks, Ina, and congratulations again.
Oh, it's awesome being with you. Thanks so much for the time, Andy. Great seeing you.
All right. Thank you for listening to another edition of the Friday Golf Podcast. Big thanks to our producer, PJ Clark, for editing and producing this podcast. We will be back next week with another episode of the podcast and look forward to the off season where we get to do a little bit more widespread topics. So we'll see you next week. And thank you guys for listening as always.